when you look at everybody's successes, like just think about all your failures and all your successes.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go through, you're going to find out that you had all these four principles that I was talking about. You had either specific knowledge or specific education or a specific skill.
Mm-hmm.
You had the right team around you, right? You had the right tools around you, and you understood your why.
Yes.
Because this is not going to guarantee success, but it's going to put you in the right path to success.
Hey everybody, Jesse Mills here. Welcome to the Creative Cash Flow Show, where we teach you real estate secrets for achieving time and money freedom. Now, not just real estate, but all types of tips and hacks for achieving time and money freedom, because we don't want just money freedom. We want time freedom. We want lifestyle freedom. And I'll tell you what, I'm here with an awesome special guest that I'm blessed to have, who can tell us a lot about that, is helping thousands of people also do the same thing through his education company, through his advisory and his amazing experience. And I'll tell you what, man, you've got an amazing story that I can't wait to have you share with everybody, that I just got to hear a few weeks ago when we were together in Miami. But I have Jeff Tomasulo. I said that right?
Yeah, you got it right. You got it.
It seems like there should be, like more to it. And
it's just, I always say to people, it sounds, Tomasulo. It's just Tomasulo.
Jeff Tomasulo.
It's pretty easy, but I always get that mess up. You should hear it when I'm going on TV.
Yeah.
There's two things the anchors always do before we're getting on, like 30 seconds, a minute before. They always turn to me and they go, how do I pronounce your company's name? Because I have a hedge fund that's called Vespila Capital or Vespila Capital Management. So they try to get that. And then all of a sudden they go, hey, how do I pronounce your last name? It's Tomasulo? Tomasulo? And I'm like, no, Tomasulo. So they usually get it after that.
Tomasulo, just like it is spelled and written.
Yes.
So Jeff, you have an amazing experience on Wall Street. You have Vespila Capital, where you manage a hedge fund there and manage roughly how much assets under management right now?
A little over 115 million under management.
So $115 million under management. And on top of that, you have your company Tactical Income, which is trade with an edge. I love it. And tell me how you got into to that company. But you have an amazing story. And, one of the things that you were just talking about here offline, guys, is a lot of folks that are, doing some cool things, some big things, and are, making the kind of leaps and bounds that you want to financially, to have that freedom, to have that time freedom, that financial freedom, and are getting there. You don't see the backstory. You don't see when things got real tough or real bad, or maybe way worse than what it is now for what you're comparing it to. And so there's a lot of backstory people don't see, right? Everyone's an overnight success, but they don't see, the 20 years, 30 years it took to get there, or the real bad days that happened. And I love people that are just genuine and honest and share that stuff. And so you have a great story.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's funny you say that, because I've been, I download music all the time, and I came across a like this motivational, I don't want to say song. It's like it's like a video or whatever. And he says that, he goes, everybody believes that, when they see you cross the finish line and they think you're an overnight success, but they didn't see the 10,000 hours of all the work that you've put in. They just remember the picture of you crossing that finish line. And they don't see the hard work that people put in, or the failures and all the ups and downs that anybody who's ever tried to go out and create anything or be a part of something bigger than just themselves, they don't really get to experience that. Like, it's one of the reasons why, and I'm getting off a little topic here, is one of the reasons I want my kids to always participate in some kind of team sports, or even just sports, individual sports, because when you do that, whether it's at a young age or you continue all the way up through high school and college, you get to experience a lot of the failures and then the exhilaration of the wins, or the successes, the ups and downs that life brings as an entrepreneur, or someone that is trying to create a different life than what, the quote unquote normal do. And when I say normal, the ones that, go to high school or college and get a job and then work at a certain job for, 5, 10, 15 years and then move to another one and they finish out their career.
Mhm.
It's a totally different beast, to say the least, and I've definitely had a unique career with a lot of ups and downs and still having ups and downs, even after 26 years of being on Wall Street. So yes, absolutely.
Man, well, and I mean, it's kind of an oxymoron. If anyone just hears the word Wall Street, ups and downs is what happens, right?
Right.
Happens at a daily, maybe hourly basis, especially it seems lately, right? But
Yes, especially lately.
oh my
Yes.
Lord, you have 4 kids, yes?
Yes, I have 4 kids,
Four
which
kids. What ages
this
again?
I go from 16-year-olds down to an 8-year-old, and I have my in the middle, like 13-year-old twin girls. So a lot of ups and downs there. And
Yeah.
especially this week alone, Jesse, is that my ex-wife, she's gotten COVID. So I've had 4 kids since Sunday,
Oh,
and now this is one of the things about working from home now, is
right.
that you gotten so accustomed to working from home, but when you have 4 kids and they want to go and do things, makes
Mm,
it very difficult, especially when you're trying to run your own business. But with that said, you talk about a lot of this and it's about freedom, having the
absolutely.
freedom and the flexibility to be able to work from home, not have a boss, right? To be able to, yes, it might affect my daily, being able to get certain tasks done on the daily, but to be able there and not worry about someone firing me,
Right.
or worrying about, some, getting looked negatively, negative upon.
Hmm.
I'm here to be able to take care of the kids, even begrudgingly, because I want to get my work done. But you know what? It's fun to have that freedom, or it's nice to have the freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I think it's funny. I was reading a survey the other day about, I was reading it and then watching a video that kind of followed it, talking about, right, the great quit and, everyone leaving their jobs. And one of the biggest things that came out of COVID, and we're going way off topic, but I'm an off topic guy. So we'll
Okay.
come back. We'll be all over the place. We'll come back. But one of that was about choice, right? It was about
Yes.
choice, and people want choice. And it might not even be the best choices, but it's the fact you have choice. And so, I value that all the time. And it's funny. I've been working from home for years. I got an office during COVID. Like, I need to get out of the house.
Right.
And everyone else is like, this work from home stuff is amazing. And everyone's experiencing that for the first time when I always had to go punch a cubicle every day, right? And sit in traffic. And like, I love it. And I'm like, I got to go to an office. But for me, it's the toughest thing is it's not, I wake up and I just already think of the million things that I have to do when I look at my list. Like, I don't twiddle my thumbs and think about what do I have to do, but that's the power of momentum and being busy.
Right.
Sometimes that happens, right? And that's a tricky thing. You get negative momentum or positive momentum. But for me, it's more of the fact, like you're talking about the kids.
Yep.
I don't want to look at my kids and say, "Sorry, Daddy can't play right now. I'm about to hop on a meeting or this or that." It sucks to say that, but I'm like, "Hey, Daddy's going to work late tonight, but tomorrow, Daddy's doing a half day, or I'll
Right.
cut out for 4 or 5 hours in the day. We'll do the water park, and then I'll be up at 6 a.m. and I'll be working till 9." But so that choice, right? It's about
Right.
choice.
Detroit, and it's interesting you bring up choice. Now, getting back to my story, right? There was a
Mhm.
point in my, when we get to a point where we have failure, and there does become, you have to make that choice, right? And I was very fortunate on the way I got in onto Wall Street, right? Like, I never wanted to be a hedge fund manager. I didn't even know what a hedge fund manager was when I was younger, right? Like that. And the reason why was because I was horrible at math, right? I was horrible at the business, never came across. And this is why, when we talk about why I founded Tactical Income, which is
Mhm.
an education company to help individuals, how to teach them basically how to manage their money, take control of their money in the financial markets, with its stocks, futures, options, currencies, crypto, all that, right?
Mm. Love
But
it.
the reason why I started this was because when I look back on my life and I look back at some of the financial mistakes that I'd made, it all stemmed from the fact that I grew up in a family that was hardworking, but had no financial education at all, where they were financially illiterate. And I mean, my father was a corrections officer at Rikers Island, one of the worst jails in New York City,
Wow.
for 24 years. And, he had very little financial literacy when it came to that, right? He didn't have a college degree. His grandfather was a plumber. His father was which was my grandfather, was a civil servant who worked in the Navy and then worked as a groundskeeper at Columbia University. And so there was none of that. Like, the way we're taught financial literacy in our country is either you had a rich uncle, you have, someone in your family that had that expertise, or a friend of a family that will be sitting there and willing to engage with you and teach you this stuff, or you have to have this innate kind of interest in it, right? I never had an interest in it. And one of the reasons why is because I'm dyslexic, right? So school was always a challenge for me. So I just, and then back when I grew up, I'm old, it was fine to split up people who weren't good at school and say, hey, these are the slower kids, they go into these classes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And or teachers look at what your strengths are and they push you towards your strengths, right? They don't try to build up your weaknesses. Like, no one ever came to me when I was in any of the grades, whether I was in grammar school or high school, middle school, any of that, and said, hey, listen, we're going to work on your math because you can make $10 million a year as a investment banker on Wall Street.
Yeah, right.
That never crossed my path, never came in my zone, right? It was like, hey, you are horrible at math. You're not that great of a student, but you love history, have an interest in history. We're going to push you towards history and social studies and English, and you can one day hopefully become a lawyer or maybe a teacher. That was my biggest thing. Or you're going to become a teacher. Mm. And that's what I thought, right? And I was a good athlete, and they pushed me towards sports and that, but no one during that whole time period ever mentioned that I can make, that you could make money. You don't have to be the smartest kid in the class to make money. You could start your own business. You just have to learn how to run a business, and you just have to learn how to be good with people. And you have to learn how to read a balance sheet, and we can teach you how to get these skills. No one does that. We don't have that today in our schools. I mean, think about this. We graduate our kids from high school and college, and most kids can't do their own taxes, right? Not many kids from high school can balance a checkbook. Not many kids from high school can explain to you and I about interest rates and how that could affect them on credit cards and car loan payments. But we're teaching them all this history, and we're teaching them how to do grammar, but we're not teaching them a real world thing where not many kids are cut out to go to college, but can be so super successful in starting their own business. But and even if they go and start their own business, they fail because we didn't teach them the right skills to learn how to run a business and deal with taxes and deal with interest and deal with people, right? And managing people.
Absolutely.
And so to me, my story is after, I realized I was only good at history or English. I went on to college. I went to the University of Rochester, which is a great university up in Rochester, New York. Mm-hmm. And I was a poli-sci major, and I was going to try to go to law school. And I did well by working really, really hard. I wasn't the top of my class, but I did well in school, and I applied to law school, and I got accepted to 2 law schools, and I took a year off because I wanted to try to get into a better law school. My SAT score, my LSAT scores were horrible. My SAT scores were horrible, especially on the math side. And I'm telling that I'm pointing that out, Jess, because of what I do now. Because people are shocked, right? If my math teacher from high school realized that I managed $115 million with math, she would be like, how? And even sometimes I amaze myself, but I'll save that for a little bit. I
love that.
But, when I finally, decided I was going to go to law school and this was going to be my thing, I had no idea. However, right, and this happens a lot in life, and this, a lot of what happens in our lives has to do with networking and who you know.
Absolutely.
Right. It's one of the worst things that I did early on in Wall Street. I didn't do well enough, and that is networking. But the way I got my job, I got a job as a lobbyist in DC through networking, right? Mm-hmm. And I took a year off, and I was sitting there only making $21,000 a year. This is 1996. Oof. I had to share a one bedroom with a woman, right? Who it was totally platonic. A friend of mine from school.
Uh-huh.
We shared a one bedroom in DC so we can split the $800 a month rent.
Wow.
So we could live in a nicer building than in a crazy, terrible area to live.
Yeah.
But
As a lobbyist.
I was working for a lobbyist. Now you think
Yeah.
this guy's making hundreds of thousands and I'm making 21,000.
Right. Yeah.
So I had to wait tables and bartend, which most people do, right, to make extra money. But the problem was the girl that I was dating at the time she would fly down from New York and she would sit at my bar and watch me try to make money by being very friendly to all the patrons and trying to and she hated it.
Doing your thing. You're doing your thing.
I was doing my thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So she went back to New York and her brother, I didn't know this at the time, was a trader on Wall Street. Head trader of a prop group. This is 1996 at the time, or at end of 95, beginning of 96. Calls me up one day, says, "Listen, my sister's miserable. I want you to come and be my assistant trader, and I'll pay you $75,000 a year." And I was like, "What? Wait, I'm making 21.
Yeah.
Over the next 9 months, I'm going to make, close to $75,000. Right. And then he said, he'd give me a little bonus before I go to law school, but come up to New York, make my sister happy. And I'll teach you what we do. And I was like, holy cow. Absolutely. Yeah. I took the job and,
you're like, I got to say yes to this, right? You can't say no to that opportunity.
Had to. And I talked to my brother and father at the time. And I was like, they're like, listen, it's a great opportunity to learn something different. And to do something different and make some money. And my whole family is from New York. So it made sense. So I go up there and I start on April 1st, 1996. And one of the things that the first day I get there, he sits me down in front of probably about 50 traders at the time. And he starts to explain exactly what they do. And he says, hey, we trade the NASDAQ long only. And I raised my hand real quick. And I said, whoa. I was like, can you explain to me what the NASDAQ is? And he goes, what? He goes, do you even know what a stock is? I go, not really. I guess it's a company. And he's like, oh my God. And he's like, I got a lot of work cut out for me.
He's like, are you serious, kid?
He was like, holy, and everybody around me's laughing. He's like, oh my God, where'd you get this kid?
Yeah.
And he's like, but here's the key. So that was April.
Okay.
I had to make a decision to go to law school in August. That's where law school started at the end of August that year.
Yeah, 4 months basically.
4 months
to work this. Yeah.
August, the end of July. It was actually the beginning of the middle of August, August 15th, right? I had to make a decision by August 23rd to show up to go to law school. And I got my first bonus check for $42,000 for 1 month's work.
That was your bonus.
That was my bonus. That wasn't my salary.
Yeah.
That wasn't anything. That was my bonus.
Like, wait a minute.
I was like, wait a second. My father at the time, who's working at Rikers Island, I think his base salary was in the 40s or maybe $50,000 for the entire year.
Wow.
And obviously made more money with overtime. And what I realized there, though, first of all, I wasn't going to law school. I was like, holy cow. I'm watching people make millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And what I realized at that point in my life was I had absolutely zero knowledge starting on April 1st. And when I was taught a specific skill, I got the specific knowledge and I had the right team around me supporting me along the way. And I had the right tools that these guys were using to interpret the market, interpret what we were trying to do. And I had the desire because I was like, shoot, I'm watching these younger guys. And now I was 21 or 22 at the time. I'm watching these 35-year-olds making $5-6 million, $1 million. I was like, I can do this. Yeah. If they can do it, why can I do it? Right. There was no, am I smart enough? It wasn't, there wasn't any of this education stuff like, oh, I didn't go to Harvard. I didn't go to Yale. It was, they were teaching me a certain skill, right? They were giving me a certain knowledge, like an electrician, a plumber, a doctor. And then they were just supporting me along the way. And I was learning as I did the repetition. I was learning all different markets. And I was like, wow. And I just sat there and I'm like, imagine if I applied that to everything I want to do in life. Right. That little formula there. And that's kind of how,
like a map, like a roadmap.
Right. I
Yeah.
came up with I call it my founding principles, and what we teach at Tactical Income, and what
Mhm.
I teach all my students, and I teach anybody who wants to listen to me when they ask me what made me successful. I didn't know it at the time though. It sat there. It wasn't until I failed,
Mm.
because here's the thing. I stayed there, and I became a multimillionaire by the age of 23.
Wow.
And then the guy who gave me my
That's
job,
awesome.
he decided he wanted to leave because he got excuse my language, screwed over when they were paying bonuses. He didn't get a bonus that he thought he should based on his performance. He got all mad, decided he was going to poach the bunch of his best traders, and he was going to leave and start his own firm. And that's what he
Wow.
did. And he asked me to come along and be a small little partner. I got a 5% stake in this company,
Okay.
and we started it with about 7 to 8 guys and
Wow.
girls, and we grew that firm from those 8 people to 175 traders.
Holy crap.
Right.
Wow.
And we then, a bunch of years later, not bunch, about 3-4 years later, we
Mhm.
sold it to E-Trade Financial for $150 million.
Wow. 150 million.
$150 million.
100.
Now,
And
I
this is
was,
a few years. I mean,
this
that's,
is 3 years later,
you're not talking
right?
like 20, 30 years.
No, I
Wow.
mean, and that was amazing about it was, and we could talk about how
Oh my
companies
God.
do crazy stuff, but I was 28 years old.
Wow.
I was making all this money, from being a trader.
One,
And
one,
now I just
one
got,
thing you said real quick. Sorry, I got to just say
yeah,
this. One thing you said, I think is so important. You were looking at these other guys before you got to that level, which is, I mean, Jesus, man, there's years. And you said, if they can do it, I can do it. If you didn't think that, do you think you would have gone and had the courage to leave a good thing for maybe a better thing, but maybe a worse thing, right? I don't know.
that's the one when people ask me about my perseverance and my success in life,
Mhm.
or even when I was, and I don't know where it comes from. I think it came from maybe my parents, because I have a brother who's 6'2", and I'm 5'8",
Okay.
right? My brother's,
Same.
my brother was salutatorian of his class,
Yeah.
right? Good looking guy, like, all this stuff. And my father, I just remember when I played football like my brother did, and we both went on and played at college. And my father used to say to me, no matter what, I don't care how big they are, how fast they are, if you work hard, you can do whatever they can do.
That's
Right.
awesome.
And I think that stayed with me, because I had success. I had zero success in the classroom because I had dyslexia and no one knew back then.
Mhm.
But I had so much success on the sports field by, hey, looking at people and being like, I want to be like them. What do they have that I don't? And why can't I do that? And it's always even to this day, I still sit there and I say, why not me?
Yeah.
Why not me? Like, what did they like?
That
And
is an amazing question that more people should be asking all the
and
time.
it got even more entrenched when I went to Wall Street, because I saw a guy who had no college education, just out of high school, making $10 million a year. And then I see a guy from Harvard and Yale fail.
Wow.
So I realized it wasn't about the education, right? It has
Mm.
nothing to do with education. Does education help? Like this much, right? Into certain things. If you really need to learn certain things, but you can even learn that on your own now, especially with the
Mm.
internet age, right? Like,
Absolutely.
I guess I didn't learn how to read balance sheets as well as they teach at Harvard, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
But what it taught me
You
was
do
that
pretty damn good.
right, but the
Without that.
education
Yeah.
didn't it meant so little
Mhm.
compared to the specific knowledge, right? Like, teach me the skill of how to make this pen, and if I can, over repetition, I could become pretty damn good at making this pen. And
Absolutely.
I might be able to become the top 10 pen maker in the world, because if you have the right team around you, you have the right mentors around you, and
Mhm.
you're watching these mentors who are the top 2 to top 5 in the world. And then you keep working at it, and you have that perseverance, and you have the drive to say, why not me? Well, even if you don't become the top 1, you're going to become pretty damn good. And
Absolutely.
that's kind of my life, right?
I
I've
love that.
become pretty damn good
Yeah.
because I have that attitude, why not me? And I'm always searching to be better.
Why not me?
Always.
How did they do it? If this guy can do it, I can do it. We've always
100%.
thought that. I
Like,
love
think
that.
about, I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of the best bodybuilders ever, right? He's like the GOAT, right?
Right.
There were
Totally.
bodybuilders after him that mimicked him. Maybe they didn't become exactly like him, but they still won world titles. They still won national titles by following his process and learning from him, right? Like, it's, that to me is how, like, and we'll get into my strategy or what I do in a little bit, but it's kind of like, I look at all my success and it comes down to that formula, but I didn't realize it, getting back to the point, until I failed. And what ended up happening, after we made the $150 million,
$150 million selling the company.
I am like, I thought I'm king shit. Like, I literally, I'm 28
How could you not?
old,
How could you
and
not?
I didn't think I could do anything wrong, and I didn't. Right? Like, I the more I think back, right, I had goals, right? I wanted to turn the 8 figures that I had sitting there in the bank, and I wanted to turn into 9 figures. And I gave myself a 10-year time horizon. And what I did in 3.5 still amazes me to this day, because I went out and I invested in multifamily development projects. I wanted multiple streams of income. I wanted to make money from everywhere. But I went out and did multifamily development projects in Greenwich, Connecticut. I went out and I did these things called reverse mergers, which are like SPACs that you see, you hear about in the news. I invested in the next $1 trillion business, which is health and wellness. We did these clinics in Florida and Texas. I even gave an NFL football player, a Hall of Famer, Heisman Trophy winner. He came to me, a buddy of mine. I played golf with him in charity tournaments, and he had this great idea that he was going to do with Visa, and Visa and him were teaming up. He needed cash, gave him cash. And that 8 figures in 3.5 years, I turned that 8 figures into zero.
Oh my God. Nothing.
I lost everything.
That's a ton of money to lose.
Single penny and then some, because I thought I was king shit, right? So I took other people's money. Everybody wanted to give me their money. They're like, hey, invested in that. Yes. Hey, if you're going to invest in reverse mergers, I like that. You're going to invest in real estate, I like that. But in reality, I never lost money doing what I do best. And I mean, listen, I lose money as traders, but I never had that kind of loss as a trader. Right. Because I knew what I was doing. What I ended up doing, what so many people do, is I entrusted these people to invest these large sums of money, of my money and other people's money, to do things that I had no understanding of. I didn't even know the risks. I didn't know how to do the due diligence. I almost was like taking it and throwing, what, against the wall, and hopefully something was going to stick at the time.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And people come to me all the time. I mean, I'm not even telling half the deals that I did for $100,000 here, $200,000 here, thinking something was going to hit because some guy had a great idea, or some woman came to me and had a great idea. But
you got away from what you were doing best to make money. You stopped doing what you were doing to get to that point.
100%. And I thought it could be easy, right? Like, people makes money. It's easy to make money. Listen, anything worth having, it's never easy. That's what I want to understand and tell people, right? You have to put the grind in, right? If things were easy, how many people would be running 4-minute miles and driving around Ferraris? Everybody would.
Yeah.
Right. If it was easy, we would all start podcasts and make, be the guy who's the YouTuber that makes, $40 million a year, Mr. Beast. Everybody would be Mr. Beast.
Right. My kids love Mr. Beast.
Right. Right. Like,
but it ain't easy.
It ain't easy, but they think it's easy.
They do.
Right. Like, so when I lost all that money, and I can't tell you, I mean, it got so bad. And when I talk about bad, like, people are like, oh, you must have hid money. You had money, you had assets. First of all, when you lose money for investors, if you don't pay those investors back, you get sued, right? You got to file. You said you filed bankruptcy. You're going to, bad things start to happen. And in my business, if you don't pay investors back, you're pretty much done. Like, it's really hard to raise money.
It's a kiss of death, right?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had to go home to my ex-wife, who was my wife at the time. And she was about 7 months pregnant with twins. And I had to go home to my 2.5-year-old daughter. And I said, listen, we have this beautiful apartment on Park Avenue. Wow. I need to sell this immediately so we could pay back our investors. And I got so lucky. It's probably one of the luckiest things that have happened to me during that time period. And I had a guy come in and buy an all cash offer on our apartment right before the whole 2008 debacle started happening.
Like right
So,
at the top of the roller coaster.
right at the top. It was the best thing that could have happened to me at that time.
Wow.
So I was able to pay back the majority of my investors, but I had to liquidate most of my assets to pay back the majority of my investors, right? That asset and a couple other assets at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved into this small little townhome, right? About, in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And the first month I'm there, I get a knock at the door from my new neighbor, and he comes in and goes, "Hey, Jeff, someone's milling around your car." And I'm like, I know what that is. I walked into the house, got the car keys from my Porsche Cayenne Turbo, and there was the repo guy.
No
and I
way.
handed it over to the repo guy, and he's putting that black SUV on top of that flatbed. And you know what happens in those condo communities and those?
Oh God, everyone's coming out to see what's going on.
Everybody's coming out. There's my ex-wife who is pregnant with twins at the time, 9 months. My daughter walking out behind me going, "Where's the car going?" and crying. My ex-wife's crying, all this stuff, but she knows what's going on. And I had to go into the townhome and call my father, correction officer, and say, "Hey, can I borrow your credit card?" And he's like, "Sure, why?" "I have to rent a car to take my wife to the hospital to have the twins." We were going to the hospital the next day to have the twins. And I drove her to the hospital in a rental car. I took my twins home 5 days later after the car was repossessed. And I took them home in a rental car. And
dude,
when you don't think it could get any worse, what usually happens?
It gets worse.
A lot worse.
That's what happens. Yeah.
9 months later, my father dies in a tragic accident.
I'm so sorry, man.
And thank you. And when you talk about, you think about life, and you think about at the time you're losing all these things, right? And the quote unquote friends, they all disappear at that time. But I lost my best friend. And what I realized was at that point in my life, that was where I hit rock bottom. And when you talk about choices, in the beginning of this podcast, you talked about making choices. And I had a choice to make at that time in my life, right? I was 30, probably 32 at the time, 31. And I sat there, and you have all these people in your life, the naysayers, right? The people who were like, and the naysayers could be really close. The naysayers was my mom and my ex-wife at the time. They were like, "Listen, you had a great run. Why don't you go and get a normal job, right? One that, gives you a salary, one that has health benefits, and get your life back on track." And, at that point, you're like, holy cow, like they make sense, right? It makes sense at that time.
It's crazy, like what you did. I mean, for anyone, period, to do what you did is amazing, right? You know that. I know you're being very humble, but it's amazing to get to that level of success, especially at that age. It's crazy how you would go, "Yeah, I better just go do this and make 10, 20 times less than what I was making because
they wanted me to become a teacher.
It's smart and it's safe."
Yeah.
Because you already did it. You did it once. But it's easy to hear that and go, and because, man, wow. I mean,
and so many people do, right? So many people give up on their dreams because they start to have the self-doubt. I had tons of self-doubt. Right. I had
very easy to do in the shoes you were in. Holy crap.
Think about I had generational wealth that I pissed away. And, everybody's like, "Oh, now they say, hey, it was a great learning experience." I could have learned a lot better and a lot cheaper than learning the way I learned there. But one of the things it made me do, and I do this every month in my investing, I do it in everything I do in life, is self-reflect. And when I realized that, hey, by losing my father at 60, he was 62 years of age. I realized that life is short and life can change in an instant like that, right? Snap of fingers, something could happen, life changes.
Totally. Yeah.
And I realized I could go become a teacher. I could become a professor. I can, go get another job, a normal job. But when you realize the opportunities that are out there, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in the financial markets, whether it's your business idea, I wasn't willing to give up yet. I was willing to take the sacrifice right? Whether it was going to, and it would cause my family, some hardship on a short term, but for a longer term period, I knew the right thing that I needed to do at that point in my life was first learn why I failed,
Yes.
right? What did I do wrong? Right? Like what happened? And that right there's something went off in my head, and I really became obsessed at trying to find out why people fail. Right?
That's so
Not
good.
only me, like, but everybody. And then
I love that you're not blaming people. You're not like this thing,
No.
that thing. You're like, no, it was me, right? And you want better answers? What do? Ask better questions.
You ask questions, and then here's the thing: you have to answer them, and you have to be honest when answering them. Like I always say to people, when you ask the question and why, don't just say ask why. Go ask why, and then go and answer it, and keep trying to answer it until you find that answer of why something happened or why is something happening. Don't just ask it, because you don't learn anything from that.
No.
Right.
No.
So for me, I became a self-proclaimed expert in failure. And then on the flip side, I wanted to know why people succeeded and how they succeeded. Why were the people able to survive 2008 and walk away being richer than they were? And why were people able to survive the 1999 2000 .com crash, which I traded through, and they survived and made a ton of money? And all those things were running through my head during this time period. And that's when I uncovered my principles that I just shared with you, which I learned my first 6 months on Wall Street, right? Wow. It was like, when you look at everybody's successes, like just think about all your failures and all your successes. And when you go through, you're going to find out that you had all these 4 principles that I was talking about. You had either specific knowledge or specific education or a specific skill. You had the right team around you, right? You had the right tools around you, and you understood your why.
Yes.
Because this is not going to guarantee success, but it's going to put you in the right path to success.
Like the bumper sign, right? If you have that,
oh my gosh,
stay on course.
You're going to stay on it. And think about it. When I say team, you're going to have the right mentors. Like if I could have, and I didn't mention this and you didn't mention this, but I got very fortunate where I was able to, prior to the pandemic, to travel with the Sharks, right? Kevin O'Leary, Barbara Corcoran, Robert Herjavec. And I was able to travel around and talk about financial education. But I think back as my team.
Yeah.
And I think back about some of the mistakes I made. I didn't have a Barbara Corcoran that I could call up and say, hey, Barbara, can you check out this real estate deal I'm doing in Greenwich, Connecticut, and give me your advice, or can you manage it for me, or have people manage it? I'm going to put the money in.
Yeah.
And even my brother came to me, and I put $5 million into a real estate development project, multifamily development project in Greenwich. And I knew nothing, right? I was relying on the general contractor and the general manager of that thing. And my brother said, hey, why don't you have a buddy who does multifamily development. He goes, why don't you pay him about, 30 grand, 40 grand a year to manage the project, so you have your inside guy. And I said, 40 grand? I'm not paying him $40,000. And that development project turned out to be a Ponzi scheme.
Wow.
I lost $5 million in a Ponzi scheme that I could have easily avoided if I would have brought the right people in. But because I was too cheap, right? I wanted to save that extra buck. I hate to tell this to people, but sometimes you have to pay money to have the right team. I didn't have the right accountants. I didn't have the right lawyers. I didn't set up the right estate plan in. So when everything the shit did hit the fan, where I had these apartments an apartment and a house that I bought from my mom and dad that were in my name, that people tried to go after. But if I would have did the right estate planning and just protected myself that way, but I was too cheap to hire the lawyers. I had 8 figures in my checking account, and I was like, wait,
you're too cheap for
later. I'll do it later. I'll pay for it later. I'll do it later.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
wow.
So it wasn't until that failure where it really kind of sunk in that anything that I'm going to do going forward has to have those 4 principles. I need to have the specific knowledge. Even if I'm not going to do it, I want to learn enough about multifamily development. I want to learn enough about Greenwich, Connecticut. And then I'm going to bring my team member in that has the expertise. I still have the knowledge, but has the real expertise.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pay him to help me manage this. Yes. Will I make a little less? Absolutely. But it is so much better than losing everything.
How much safer is it? And your chances of, losing it. And that, I mean, $5 million, holy crap.
On one project, right?
Versus
like
30 grand.
Yeah,
That's one thing. Oh my God.
It's like when I think about that, it really blew my mind. But those 4 principles, they're so simple.
Say those 4 again.
Effective.
Say those 4 again, because I think they're amazing.
You need specific knowledge, specific education, not the Harvard, Yale, because I find that all bullshit. Because think about this, about education. When you're investing, your investments, they don't know whether you have a PhD from Harvard or you didn't graduate high school. They don't discriminate. Right?
Like
they don't know your skin color. Mm-hmm. They don't know your educational, your where you grew up, whether you grew up on welfare or you came from money, mm-hmm. right? And it sure hell doesn't give a hootenanny whether you think you're smart or not. Like, that's the biggest thing.
It
you
doesn't
just
care.
Need that specific that skill. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, you build that skill by getting the experts, the mentors, the team, right? The right lawyers, the right accountants, the people who are doing it, right? Even if you have
the
to
right
give
people,
up,
not just people, but the right people.
The right people. And the problem is, and this was my problem, I was a greedy, what? I was like, oh, if I bring this guy in, I'm only gonna make, instead of making 5 million, I'm gonna make 4 or 4.5. Like I was afraid to give something up.
Wow.
To have the right people in there. It's such short-term thinking. But again, that comes back when I really look into it, financial literacy. Mm-hmm. Starting where did I learn? Like, I didn't learn people, I never saw business dealings before, mm-hmm. right? I never saw people do business, right? I grew up in that environment.
You're kind of just winging that stuff, really. Yeah.
Right. So
you're almost like a lotto winner. Like you worked your tail off and did the right things to get to the place where you did very well. And then you sold the company. But again, that was doing this thing over here. Right. You're doing this thing over here. And then you kind of strayed from that. And then you're like, hey, I just got money, which is funny. It's almost like winning the lotto. Like you had won the lotto, but you earned it. You didn't win it. You totally earned it. But you're like a lotto winner. And then you're just throwing crap out there, just seeing what happens without the knowledge.
Yeah. So the other two, so you have a specific knowledge, specific education. That's mm-hmm. number 1. Mm-hmm. You have the right team around you, mentors. Mm-hmm. Then you have to have the right tools, right? The understanding, like to me in my business, it's the information flow. Mm-hmm. It's the trading tools. And we could always talk about that. In your business, in real estate, I'm sure there are certain tools that you need to be successful and you have to know how to use them. And then the last one, which a lot of people don't like to focus on because they think it's hokey pokey. And it is understanding why you're doing this. And you're this whole podcast is what's really important because we talk about freedom. We talk about choice. Mm-hmm. Those are reasons why we do things. It's not about the money, right? No. Like there comes a point where sometimes you have enough money or sometimes to put the sacrifice in to become a billionaire. And I have billionaire clients and I golf with a billionaire. I used to golf with him. He's old now. I used to golf with him every Friday. And he said to me once, we really stuck with me. He gave up so much of his life to be where he is. And when he said life, he gave up the watching his son's baseball games and his relationships. Mm-hmm. You have to find out what is important to you mm-hmm. and understand that why. And you can't do it for anybody else. I used to say, I'm going to do it for my kids. And I laugh now because one day, one of those kids might be like, I might disappoint one of those kids and I might be like, bye dad. And am I going to give up on my goals and my dreams because someone else, I was trying to do this for someone else? No, you have to do it for yourself. And you got to understand what is driving you because again, it is not easy. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have failures. And when you understand why you're doing it, the ups and downs, like when I have a bad month or a bad quarter or a bad year, mm-hmm. I'm not giving up on my hedge fund. I'm not giving up I'm not giving up on my education business because it's not going well. Mm-hmm. No, mm-hmm. I have a desire and I have a why.
Your why is way stronger than that. Way stronger than that. Yeah. And so you stick with that.
100%. And And the last one I should put in there, but I don't, is perseverance. It's just don't give up, because anytime people ask me, why do people, retail investors, got people who want to learn how to invest on their own, fail? I say they failed, one, because they don't have the four principles, but the last one is they don't have the perseverance. They give up. Because most likely many people give up when they're so close to almost having a breakthrough.
Right.
And it's just, and a lot of times it's because they run out of money. And if you have those four principles and you learn it from the right people, you won't run out of money, because you'll be smart at the capital preservation and understanding how to manage risk, whether you're doing it in real estate or whether you're doing it in the stock market. You won't run out of money, but it is perseverance.
Man, that I'm telling you, like I got some of it at the event, and I wanted to hear it again, and I wanted everyone else to hear this, because you literally went from watching your very nice car get repoed with your pregnant wife, and then having to rent a car to go to the hospital, and then now you're on CNBC, Reuters, Fox, Cheddar News, hanging out with the sharks from Shark Tank, and you had these people close to you, not just people, family, pulling at you saying, hey man, you had a good run. You got lucky. Maybe that worked out once. Yeah. Kind of like the lotto, like you won it, but you can't do it again. Right. Except for you earned it and worked for it and worked your tail off. But then you almost went down the easy path, the path of least resistance, and you didn't, because you kind of, I think, brought that back. You kind of reignited the fire of, look, if this person could do it, I can do it. I made some mistakes. I know I made some mistakes. How do I learn from it? And I love that you obviously have grown tremendously. I mean, from, making, that kind of money, but being so cheap on 30 grand to then saying, hey, I'm going to dive into all of my failures and learn and really peel back the onion and keep going layer by layer to say, okay, well, I did this, but then why? But then why that? And really understand it and get it and fix the airplane, man. You got back on course. You fixed the plane.
And I think a lot of people don't like to admit, it's hard, right? For people to say it was my fault. Like even that Ponzi scheme, that most people are like, oh, well, it was a Ponzi scheme. No, it was my fault. Why was it my fault? It was my fault because I didn't do the proper due diligence, right? Like I didn't do a normal background check. I didn't have the people coming in and watching the books and making sure the progress was getting done. Like I didn't know that, hey, you have to hit certain check marks before the bank gives you more money. But this guy was getting around it because he was doing X, Y, and Z. Normal people would have picked up, not normal, people with expert opinions would have been able to pick up on that. And I didn't have that expertise to do it.
That's crazy.
And to me, that is what drives me now, why it's so important when I talk to people, especially when you look at the market environment. Now we go to the stock market, right? We're in this market where a lot of people are losing a lot of money, and they're losing a lot of money because they are losing money in like, Bitcoin, right? An asset class that everybody got hyped up about. Not saying, I'm not making any judgments about Bitcoin.
Sure.
But if you have the proper training and you have the proper knowledge, like of how these asset classes move, the booms, the busts, you could have saved yourself a lot of money. Right. And you could have, and not to say you could have made yourself a lot of money, and you could have saved yourself a lot of money just by understanding how asset classes move, and especially newer asset classes like something like a Bitcoin. Right. And I learned that a lot by expertise. Right. So someone listening to me, my subscriber listening to me, how I was viewing Bitcoin, how I was viewing the market, hopefully. Right. And now you have to have the willingness to listen and learn and then take action on it.
Yeah.
They would have saved themselves some money. And it's the same thing I wish I would have had in that real estate deal. Wish I would have hired the guy for the $30,000, because I'm pretty confident he would have uncovered that Ponzi scheme way before it all transpired. Right. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten the whole $5 million out, but I probably could have been able to get something out.
Right. Well, and who knows, maybe he would have helped you make money on something else.
Correct.
Right. Not even just have
100%.
Lost the money, but you could have made it on something else by being surrounded by those people that, that know more than you.
100%. And I love having the self-reflection and being all right with being on a podcast, going on stage in front of 1,000 people or 3,000 people and saying my mistakes and saying,
man.
yes, I
Wow.
did it.
Yeah.
It's all right. It's all right for you to be wrong.
Yes.
It's all right to you guys for you to declare bankruptcy, right? That's what why they're bankruptcy's laws, right? It's all right to negotiate with a credit card company and say to them, I'm not paying you the $10,000. I could pay you $5,000. Let's make a deal and save yourself $5,000. It's all right to go to the government and say, I owe you in taxes. Let's make a deal. Let's make a payment plan. There's no shame, right? That's the problem. We have the shame when we fail.
Right.
To me, there is no shame in failure. I want my kids to fail. I say that to them all the time. If my daughter, I have an older daughter who is afraid of failing because she's afraid of what other people are going to think. And to me, listen, once you get past that initial embarrassment, it's about learning. Absolutely. And it's about making yourself better. And it takes time, right? It's not like, all right, I failed. You might have to fail 3, 4, 5 times before you get it.
It's all different lessons. And
all the time.
And sometimes you forget real quick and real easy when you get back up into that new level again. Like, yeah, I'm good. Things are great.
I've done that. Listen, after making money back, what happened? I went through a divorce, right? So that's a whole nother,
like that. I didn't have to deal with that before, but now I got new stuff I have to deal with and learn from. And
you're always going to have something to deal with. It's just, hopefully you minimize them less and less as you go on in life. It is a journey, and that's, you just have to try to learn from all of that. And that's kind of what I've done pretty well. And that's kind of what we're trying to do at Tactical Income is we're doing it in a very specific way, right? My expertise, which is the stock market, the futures market, the option market, teaching people how to get control based off of those 4 principles, right? Yeah. And we obviously have our own trading principles, but based off of those 4 principles, I want people to know they can learn this and they can get the knowledge. But if they don't want to do it, then we also have, that's why I have Vespula Capital Management, which is our management company, right? Or that manages the hedge fund. Hey, I gained the knowledge from you, Jeff, but now I am building my real estate empire. I want you to now, help me take some of the money I'm making from my real estate empire, and I want you to invest it in the market for me because you have the expertise. We're giving them the option to have both of them. That's awesome. But the knowledge is extremely important to me.
Yeah,
right.
You want them to learn. You want them to understand still.
100%. I want them to know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right. So they know with their money, this is what Jeff's doing. It makes sense for me. I understand that. And that's what I want. I want them to be able to ask hard questions to people, just like if you were going to go buy a car, right? So many people do so much more research on buying a car, a depreciating asset, right, than they do about their 401ks or their solo IRAs or their retirement accounts, right? They don't even ask. They don't even know what questions to ask. I want them to know what kind of questions to ask. And I also want them, if they wanted to have a way to go and have a plan on how to manage their money. Bottom line. That. And we all should do it. We should be starting this in high school. They should be being taught in high school.
Completely. How to read a credit report and what credit is and why it will affect the rest of your life, and also
100%.
How you need it, but then sometimes you don't. That's kind of what got me on my journey. And my path was, I started the mortgage business when I was in my early 20s, mid 20s, did that for 15 years. But during the crash, right, I went from, hey, things are great. I work from home. I was making pretty good money. Things were great. And then all of a sudden, like overnight, they weren't great. But my credit cards were still the same, right? And my monthly outgo was still the same, but my income dropped rapidly. And it was a lot of things I couldn't control. Now, there's still always stuff I can control, you can control. And that's why we have that, that mind frame and that humbleness to say, hey, no, it was me. But I put myself in that position and then I learned. And then I saw more and more people that were in my shoes, right?
Right.
And I said, how do I help other folks who are like me? And how do I get back on my feet? And how do I start acquiring real estate? Because I was just helping other people get real estate.
Right.
I was helping them get the financing to buy the assets and get the cash flow and flip houses. And so I'm like, where would I have been if I would have actually like picked up on it and did it myself for 5 years? But maybe I'd be where they are too, because, people got a little greedy, got a little dumb, didn't see the writing on the wall. But those that played it very smart, like you said, why do those people that came out ahead, How did they do that? Why did they do that? What were they doing differently than 97% of the rest of the population, right?
Right. And that is how you learn. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's funny. We have this thing in our society where we don't like talking about money, right? Like no one likes talking about money. We know this in the fact where we read a lot of the stories about oh, I didn't know that guy was making 150 and I'm only making 125 because we don't talk about money. We're it's faux pas, right?
Very, yeah, it's
Even
hush
when
hush.
it's funny, when I was growing up, we had no money, right? So we never
Mm-hmm.
talked about it, or it was like, oh, that's what rich people do, or we
Mm-hmm.
can't do that, we can't afford it. And then I went to college and I met all these rich people. They didn't like to talk about money because they were embarrassed of the cars that they drove or their family houses or the vacations that they took. They didn't want to make you feel uncomfortable. And
Mm-hmm.
I learned when I first started to make money on Wall Street, I started to see how now I came from no money,
Mm-hmm.
but I started to see how people started to perceive me because of the cars I drove, the apartments I lived in, the vacations that I took. And I think that if we start talking more about money
Mm-hmm.
and we start learning from each other, especially the people that are really successful,
Mm-hmm.
we could actually start putting a little bit more money in our pocket or protect the money that we have better, because
Absolutely.
that's how we're all going to learn. It's like, to me, that's why you hear the transparency, the honesty about what I've done, because I don't want anybody to feel the way I felt when all that happened. I want people to try to avoid it. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want people to sit there thinking that they have to pay American Express, even though they can't afford to feed their family, but they think they have to pay American Express because they feel like they're going to, the credit card, the creditors are calling them every single freaking day
Yeah.
hey, give me a payment here. You need to pay me a payment, blah, blah, blah. No, I don't. I need to feel, what do you need to do for your family first?
Right.
And then what do I need to do to get myself back on track? And then I'll pay you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like, we have this fear in
Me first.
society.
No, well, and the funny thing is we all have the same thing in common. Everybody, I don't care, sorry, where you live, right? We all have to deal with money.
All the
Everybody
time.
does. Everything costs money. We have to deal with it. Everybody goes to work, whether it's a job, whether it's a business, or they're living off a retirement from what they did years past. It's for money to live. You have to. And so it's funny. It's actually one of the biggest things everyone in this world has in common, but it's so secretive. And I think a lot of it is that scarcity mindset, right? A lot
Yes.
of it's scarcity mindset. It's funny, and I'd be curious to hear on your end. There's a certain, people making 100,000, 150, 200,000 at that level, they almost are still kind of hush hush about it. And it's like, hey, look at me, look at this, what I got. People making 500,000, people making 1 million, and they're doing these events and retreats, and they're networking with other folks. It's weird. They're making 5 times more, 3 times more. They don't care though. They're like, yeah, talk to my guy, go talk to my financial guy, talk to my contractor, talk to this person. And they're almost more genuine and generous, I should say, with it, right? With
Yeah.
learning. Now, maybe it's not getting to the nitty gritty with the numbers, but it's not the scarcity mindset of I'm not going to talk about it. And I know this again from doing mortgages for over 15 years. A lot of people can look real good with what you see. What you don't see is totally different, right?
100%.
I mean, I've had doctors that couldn't get approved for a loan. I'm like, sorry, man, I got to deny you because you got 35,000 a month coming in, but you got 34,500 going out.
So
Sorry.
many, I mean, it happens to most of us. And I think that, I think there's a couple things going on, right? We live way above our means, most
Yes.
people, right? They live in paycheck to paycheck, whether you're making $50,000 a year or $500,000 a year. It sounds
Mhm.
crazy that a guy who makes $500,000 a year can live paycheck to paycheck, but it happens a
It
lot.
does. It totally does.
And then the other thing that happens a lot
Lifestyle
is,
creep, right?
what's that?
Lifestyle creep.
Lifestyle. Oh, it happened. My father said it was one of the best advice. I wish I would have listened to him a little better.
Yeah.
When I first started making my money, I had these big eyes, right?
Yeah.
And I remember we lived in New York City. I wanted this apartment on the 37th floor to overlook New York City.
Oh,
And it was, I
awesome.
forgot what it was at the time. It was probably $1.1 million. This was 1997. And then there was this 2 floors of a brownstone. Right now, the beautiful apartment was on like Second Avenue and
Mhm.
and on the Upper East Side, and this old beat up brownstone in the best neighborhood you could get, 63rd between Madison and 5th, but it was only like 600,000, these 2 floors, but it needed a lot of work, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, a young kid, I'm like, no, I want the apartment up there, the beautiful apartment. He
Right.
made me buy that apartment, the 2-floor apartment. And he said, listen, you got to live like you only make $150,000 a year. Like you can't live like you're making the millions of dollars, because what happens when you don't?
Mm-hmm.
What can you sustain?
Right.
What can be like, God forbid, he said, God forbid you had to go take a quote unquote normal job. What could you sustain?
Right.
And maybe you only have to do that for 3 years, but what can you sustain? And he goes, if you can live like that and put money away and then build assets around you that can pay for this monthly nut that you have,
Right.
keep your monthly nut as small as you possibly can. And many people don't do that.
No.
But the other problem that I find, and I don't want to get political, but politicians make money an issue.
Yeah,
right? It's
absolutely.
the haves and the have nots, right? And I think that's where we get a lot of this anger
Totally
from,
agree.
right?
Yeah.
We are angry because that person pays less in taxes because they have accountants. And we have this misconception that the middle class is getting hit with the bigger tax burden. Yes, I guess it could work out that way, but they're still paying it's not as bad as what we hear out there. It is this us against them. We're all Americans,
Absolutely.
right? We're all trying to feed our family. We all are trying to have a better life.
Yes.
Right. We all want to pay less in taxes, whether you make $1 billion a year or you make $50,000 a year. We don't like paying taxes. No one does. If anybody likes paying taxes, I don't know what to say. It's not, I don't mind paying it if I feel like I'm paying my fair share. Right. But what is that fair share? That's the problem. Right. And then you get these politicians that make you hate this other person because they're driving around fancy cars and they are paying quote unquote less in taxes, and you get angry. And then you start so then you don't want to learn from these people. And to me, when I see someone driving around in a Lamborghini, or I see someone with their private jet, I want to know what the heck they're doing, because maybe I won't get that private jet or that Lamborghini. Maybe I don't even want that, but I want to know what they're doing so I can learn from that.
Right.
And then maybe I get what I want. Maybe it's more freedom. Maybe it's a pool in my backyard. Maybe it's sending my kids to the school that they don't have to come out with debt. Maybe it's something like that. Yeah. But we have this anger towards people that have money. We think, we use dirty words. When my father used to call people, which is ironic, I end up getting a Porsche, but they drive in a Porsche. You call them a dirty name as they drove by. Yeah. And I'd be like, that's not, is that jealousy or is that anger? Like, what is it? Right. Let's get the egos aside and let's learn.
Absolutely.
Let's make our lives better.
Well, I love that, man. I love that. And that's the thing. I think it's so crucial, especially as your father, I'm a father, and to teach, and whether you're not even a parent, just to teach the youth that you just need to ask good questions. And you're so right. Everybody wants the same thing. Everybody wants to just if you have a family, if you have kids, you want them going to a safe school, a good school. You want to be in a safe neighborhood, safe environment. Everyone deserves that 1,000%. Right. And you want to have, security, and you want to have, everyone wants the same thing, but it's, I don't want to say it's necessarily a game, but it kind of is a game. Life is a game. There's people, money is a game, right? And what you don't understand, you don't know. And then when you start disattaching from, and you get angry at, right? And I know there's a lot of folks, and I've got, even within my family, where they dislike somebody because they're the CEO, or, well, yeah, that guy's going to do X and cut off all of this. And, but it's so polarized, and the government and media is polarizing the hell out of it. They 100%. Don't talk about the 10,000 jobs that were created. They don't talk about the fact they probably work triple the amount of hours that somebody else does so you can have a job. The fact that they, went in these high ups and downs like you did in your life, and then got back on their feet where, 100 other people would have said, screw that, I'm going to go for this easy peasy job, right? You are getting back on the horse and saying, let's go. And so no one wants to talk about that part. They just want to, get all in.
And that's the problem. When you think about the wealth equation, everybody thinks that, again, it's easy, but it also, not everybody wants to have that kind of wealth. Not everybody has it inside them, and it's not a bad thing.
No, not at
all.
Like,
there's some people that are content working the job that they want and being watching Netflix and binge watching on Netflix for hours on end,
right?
Where other people are, and listen, I fall in that that category sometimes I'm sitting here going, wait a second, am I doing enough? Like I just wasted 2 hours watching X, Y, and Z, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
where I know there are people I know, and I see these guys like Kevin O'Leary,
Mm-hmm.
perfect example. This is funny. I don't think I've ever said this on live on on a show getting recorded before.
Yeah, yeah.
But Kevin O'Leary, when he would come into a green room is something you sit in before you go on TV or you go on stage.
Mm-hmm.
They have all your food and whatever, and you just sit there getting ready and whatever, right? And he would come into a green room, and that guy had 2 telephones. He had a computer. He had an assistant there. He was always on the phone, always doing something and working and working and working. And I'm sitting there, pretty successful man.
Yeah.
And I would call my partner and be like, listen, when Kevin comes in, you got to call me because I don't feel like I'm doing enough.
That's awesome.
And it is something that has stuck with me because I heard this from Larry Bird and Magic Johnson had this great rivalry, right? If you it's one of those things where Larry thought Magic was always working harder than he was. And Larry thought Magic was always working harder than he was. So it pushed them to work because they didn't know what the other guy is doing. And I like to hear, I heard this somewhere, I read it somewhere about hearing the footsteps behind you. There is always someone that is going to be working harder than you, and you have to think they're working harder than you because it's going to push you.
Yes.
It's those footsteps behind you because every morning someone is out there working to take what you have or what you want. And if you could put that in your mindset, it's going to push you where you're going to go and sit there and go sit on a couch for 2.5 hours where you know that you should probably, maybe read this book or at least read for an hour and then go watch Netflix. Because I'm not one of these guys that's an all or nothing, right? I was taught by my father, hey, when you have a good month, always buy yourself something so you reward yourself. So if you're going to read for an hour and you only have 2 hours, or you have 2 hours, you want to read for an hour, read and then go and reward yourself, right?
Yeah.
Always give yourself a reward because it's going to be you can't just be hardcore. A lot of people are, then you burn out.
Yeah.
Right. Then you're asking yourself, why am I doing this?
Exactly.
Right. So my father, when he said, hey, you have a good month, whether it's buying the most expensive chocolates that you love, or it's going to buy a Porsche, always buy yourself something every time you get that bonus check because you need to reward yourself.
No, not all of it, of course, right?
Of course,
a little bit of it.
You take a portion of it, you reward yourself and you say, this is why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Right. It's why, I got a bonus check once and my mom always wanted this car and I went out and I bought her the car for her birthday. And that is why.
That's awesome.
I was like, this is why I'm doing it. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to go on vacation. I want to take my, your kids to a ball game. It's like, I'll take that money from whatever I just worked my ass off doing for the last month. I just got this little extra. I'm going to put 90% of it away. And then I'm going to do something for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very important. Very, very, very important.
So important. So, man, so much good stuff. So much good stuff. And talking to it, like, I think about college and school. I mean, man, we could go on, I know, for hours on that. And I love education. It's funny. I'm a proud college dropout. I think I went for 5.5 years for a communications major, right? I'm like Van Wilder.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, I left. Well, I took a stint because I just wanted to travel. I just wanted to travel the world and I wanted to get paid to travel. Right. So I wanted to be a tour leader, a tour guide. I interviewed with some companies and I've been pretty good traveler by, 20, 22 years old. I been to a dozen countries, 15 countries. And like, you got to travel more. I'm like, cool. I'm dropping out of school. I'm just going to go to Europe. I'm traveling. And thank God I have an amazing family and parents that support me. And they're like, hey, if that's what you need to do to get to that path, we support you. We believe in you. And like, please come back to school though when you're done. Right. And so I traveled and I studied abroad. And when I came home, I'm like, I didn't want to get a job. So I started selling sunglasses. So I had a sunglass business. I had 3 kiosks. Me and my stepdad, I brought him in. I said, hey, let's go do this. Reading Entrepreneur magazine, right? And so we had 3 kiosks in the malls back when people went to the malls all the time. And at the time, I'm like, hey, making good money. Things are great. I got 15 employees. I'm like, screw school, I'm done. So I dropped out, right? And then yeah, and then things are up and down and up and down and up and down. But I think what you said earlier at the very beginning was really cool. If somebody would have came up to you, right, and with your dyslexia even, and said, "Hey, you can make $10 million a year by just doing these things here. Not like 4 years of school, 8 years of school. Learn these sets of skills." Like Liam Neeson, I've got a certain specific set of skills, right?
I love
Learn
that.
these skills. You're gonna make 10 million a year. And if somebody walked up to 30, seniors in high school or freshmen, right, get them before they're almost out, and said that, I think there'd be a lot more people going, wait, how do you do that? What are you doing? What does your day look like? Can I shadow you? And people like you and me be like, dude, shadow me all week. I'll tell you everything, good, bad, ugly. You get to see all of
Right.
them, right?
And it's so important because it's funny you say that. I went to the Simon Business School at the University of Rochester,
Mm-hmm.
and a kid calls me up one day. He's like, "I want to be a hedge fund manager," and I was like, "All right, come down and watch what I do." He sat behind me. He was supposed to sit behind me for 2 days.
Uh-huh.
He sat behind me for one day, and he goes, "Is this all you do all day?" And I was like, he goes, "You look at these screens, you do a little work,
Yeah.
read some articles, and you watch these screens." And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Can't do it." He's like, you're not going out. You're not, I'm like, "No, I mean, listen, sometimes I go out and raise some money or try to raise money, but I have people to help me do that." He goes, "I can't sit behind these screens. Like I can't, like I need something more than that." And
Yeah.
it's so important to me to go and find these mentors, because especially at 20, 18, 19, 20, 20, do you really know what you try? I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. Now,
Yeah.
maybe I would have been a great lawyer, right? But I
I think
didn't
you would
know
have been, but you didn't know what you would have been missing out on.
exactly. I didn't know what was out there for me to achieve. And we put these, levels, or these blinders, or we can't do that. I'm missing the word, but it's like, you can't be in business because you weren't good at math, right?
Yeah.
You can't run your own business because you don't have the money. You
Mm-hmm.
can't do this because what? And what I'm trying to say, you can do anything.
Absolutely.
Right. You could do anything if you have those four things around you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just plugging away and don't let anybody ever tell you can't do it. It just blows my mind. And I feel like I'm an example of it. Is the guy who started on Wall Street didn't even know what the freaking NASDAQ was.
I love it.
Right.
Yeah.
And
What's that?
I tell you, again, about math, I was horrible at math. And now 90% of I run the money using mathematical formulas. Like it makes me laugh.
It's hilarious.
That
I wasn't horrible, but I definitely wasn't great, and I didn't like it. And I do it every day. And my job is like a puzzle. Like I just take puzzle pieces, like you and I spoke about. I take puzzle pieces, I put them together. People get what they want when I do that, and I get paid. I just take this and move it here and do this, and it's just problem solving. And it's like, how do we make this happen? But I don't like math, and I didn't graduate college, and I use an app on my phone.
I love that.
Dude, it's like 4 or 5ve buttons, but it's all I need.
And when you talk about college, I tell you, and I know we're going way over here, but to me, I say this to my daughters, and obviously my ex-wife and I have different feelings about it. And I want everybody to go to college. My parents, who did not go to college, did not grow up. My mom grew up on welfare, right? And their main goal and all they knew is that, hey, if I can get our kids educated, they'll have a better life than us. What I'm looking at, and my ex-wife's a doctor. She went, through college and went to get her, spent many, many years in med school. And I went and got my master's in finance, right? But what I realized about school, it really comes down to the individual. There is not school like you're a perfect example, right? School, like for me to spend $75,000 a year on my kid who had no interest in school. I'd rather them take a gap year or 2 years and figure out, is this for me? Is this what I really want? Now, I love the college experience. I'm not knocking it. I had a great college life.
Yeah, same.
To me, college and business school, is more about networking than anything else. It's who you meet, especially business school, not so much college. But if you told me, I'm going to go back to business school, I say, get into the best business school you possibly can get into. because you're going to be able to meet a lot of people that could help you along the way.
But it's not about the paper. It's about the people.
About the people.
It's about
how I got both my jobs.
Yeah.
My job as a lobbyist down in DC was a person, right? I did an internship in Europe when I was in college. That guy knew a lobbyist. He got me a job in the lobbyist. The girl I went to college with had a brother on Wall Street.
Wow.
The guy on Wall Street took me to his firm. Then, me doing a faulty business, the thing that went bust in Greenwich, there was a guy involved in it. His father was a worth a couple $100 million. Loved what I was doing. He helps me fund my fund. Like,
that's awesome.
It's connections and relationships, which, again, going back to financial education, this is something that I believe is so important to teach, like how to network, how to build relationships, how to communicate,
how to do it, and why you need it. Right.
We don't do enough of that. We could have a whole podcast about that.
Oh, 100%.
About how important it is. And it's something I didn't do at a young age because, again, I thought I made all this money. I didn't need to network.
Right.
You never know what happens in life. Right. In life, like, it is so important to build good networks, to build good relationships, to help people, even though when you don't have anything in the race, nothing to gain from it.
Yeah.
You try to help as many people as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's all just, to me, I never looked at it as anything but let me introduce you to my network.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, you're in real estate. You're doing X, Y, and Z. Well, my biggest client is a real estate developer. How can I introduce you to, can that help you in some way?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to get anything out of it, but you never know when it will pay dividends.
Yeah. 5
years, 10 years, 20 years. Maybe one day you're on a board of a college and my son, I don't know, like,
right.
Need something from you, or I have no idea.
There should be more dropouts on boards of colleges, right? But yeah,
no, never know.
You don't. You absolutely don't. And getting in the rooms. I mean, we wouldn't be talking if you didn't have the connection with Mr. Sean Higgins, and I didn't have that connection with Sean, and I would have met Sean if I didn't go to the event that I went to a few months before that. And that event wasn't free. That event cost money for travel, for hotel, for time to be at the event. Right? Some events I go to for free. Some I pay. Sometimes you get money to, right?
I pay a lot of money to belong to a lot of these different groups, because of what I learned, and I should have done it at a younger age, is that networking, you never know. And that's why I try to open my network up to as many people as I can, because I have good access to accountants, lawyers, all different kinds of, business people that are we're all looking to do the same thing. We're all looking to be successful.
Yeah.
And if we could help someone else be successful, whether it helps us or not, I don't want to call it karma, but it's just something that you do in life, because you never know when it could help you, or just you're changing someone else's life. Like, even, education, being able to educate someone the way I was educated on Wall Street. I find, when I get emails from my subscribers saying, hey, you changed my life, that awesome. That makes me feel like I've done something. I've accomplished something.
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding me? That's amazing. Yeah. And for me, when I am talking with the coaching student and I'm showing them how, they can make more, they are making more, in a few months than they did the last year at a job they hated. They just wanted to get out of this thing. They felt trapped. And Ooh. And then maybe, and sometimes it's kind of the crap you rub is after you go through school. Yeah, this isn't a bashing school thing by any means. I agree. Go to school, go to college, but know what you want to do, right?
Right.
And network and get that relationship capital, but know where you're going, right?
100%.
You could have the skills from, whatever you want to go into, and it might be 5,000, 10,000, 30,000, 50,000, but it's one time versus 40, 50, 70, 100 a year to go, I still don't know what I want to do, but I know I'm 400 grand in debt and I'm going to get, starting job making 60, 70, 50 to pay this back. It takes 20 years to pay back the average student loans, right? 20 years.
It makes no sense to me.
Stupid. So if it's like,
this is a whole other conversation.
Things, right? Follow these steps and you will make X if you just do the thing, do the roadmap. So I think one lesson, man, I love, everyone needs to hear it, right? There's two ways to look at things. Number one, almost everything's been done. Almost. It's 2022, right? Like, someone's probably done what you want to do or is having a pretty killer life. just go find them, study them, listen to them, watch them, get around them. And hopefully they're, someone of that good class that wants to share, wants to teach, wants to give back, hopefully, right? But someone's probably done it. But the flip side of that is, if it's not done, why not you, right?
Why not me?
Why not me? Why not now? And how do I go get it done? And there's so much information out there. I mean, literally everything is at our fingertips if you want it.
At no other point in history has this been
Never.
a great time to be able to accomplish anything. And I always say, if not now, when?
Right.
Right. Like I use those two things of why not me? And if not now, when? When am I going to do it? If you're going to write a book, do it now. Why wait 5 years? Why wait 10? It drives me nuts now. That's why having
think if Carnegie or Rockefeller had the internet, man. Think about that. Are you kidding me? Like what they did on their own. Like, are you kidding me?
It blows my mind. Like, it does. And it's funny you say, I see this, I show this guy in my town every morning. He has cerebral palsy, but he can run. Doesn't look good, but he's out every morning running.
Good for him.
It takes him. I see him. I live in the town center, and I see this guy at 7 a.m. every single morning running. And I'm like, you think about the effort that man has to go through to get himself out and then run back every single morning. And I laugh at my kids. I tell them, and you don't want to go run?
Right.
Like, look at that man.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah.
Look at other people. Like you think of people in the past, like you just brought up, and how difficult it was. We communicate. Look what we're able to do right now.
I know, right?
It blows my mind. And then we can put it online, and it's at the fingertips of millions of people to hear this. And if it helps one person, we've done our job.
Absolutely. And I think it's upon us to do that, right? It's upon us to do that 100%. Man, so much good stuff. I want you to share a little bit more about tactical income, because I'd love to hear a little bit more about the 4 principles, how you get into tactical income. And let's talk a little bit about, I'm a real estate guy. I've got money in the market. You're a market guy, but you got real estate. And I think they go together, and they can go together so well in ebb and flow. Tell us more. How can we get involved with you in tactical income, and what is it about?
Well, one is you go to our website, right? Tacticalincome.com. And then we also have the Tactical Income YouTube channel, which I think is so helpful. It's something that we do a live YouTube every Tuesday between 3:30 and 4:30. We've also post videos, education videos, and then videos on what, maybe sometimes my partner or I find interested in the market. But the one thing that I look at the financial markets, which I think is really important, is it could be anything to anybody, right? Let's just take real estate, because you brought it up, right? If you're building a real estate business empire, right? Being able to take that money and lever it, right? You're using leverage anyway to make money in real estate.
So I love real estate.
Now to take the money, you just made a 20% gain here in real estate. Now take it over. And if you have the right knowledge, and you have the right team, and you have the right tools, and you put it to work in the financial markets, and to be able to, even if you could, make an extra 10% instead of just leaving it here, and it's diversifying yourself out of some of the risks that you have of putting all your eggs in that one basket of trying to make money a certain way. And I am very keen, and that's why we're showing people how to make it almost like a side hustle, right? At least with the strategy that we use at Tactical Income, because we use a combination of using stocks and using options, which is an inherently levered product, because a lot of people start extremely small, right? They have $5,000, $10,000 in their IRAs or their retirement accounts. And we're teaching them how to take that and grow that account more efficiently, right? Because if we're taught a certain way on, through our financial advisors, through all the literature out there, that, hey, you invest in a stock, you buy more when it goes down, and hopefully over a 20-year period, you average a 10% return. We're not
Rule
like
72, forever, right?
I am not like that. I want to make money. We teach people how to make money every 45 days. We're on the 45-day kind of period over there.
Nice.
And I just want people to learn a skill on how to do that. Grow your account efficiently using tools that is at your exposure, that you can get your access to and be able to do that. And we teach you how to do it my way, a way I was taught on Wall Street, right? We were taught a very specific way. All the traders on Wall Street, even to this day, are taught a very specific way. And we do that at Tactical Income, right? We give you access to all my trades on options. A trade alert gets sent directly to your cell phone. This is the technology we have today. It goes directly to your cell phone. So you can learn and see when I get in, when I get out. And then we follow up like that, just like I was taught on Wall Street. We then give you the right team, right? You either have a coaching call with one of my head of education.
Okay.
And then you get a coaching call with me, going over all the trades, going over what we see in the market. So you're seeing the trades and then you're learning from the expert.
Like, why'd you do this? What do you think about this? And get to pick your brain.
Right. And that's exactly how I was taught.
Street? Yeah.
Yeah. This is exactly how I was taught. We're supporting you all through this process, right? And then we're giving you the tools. We're giving you our trading platform. We're giving you the algorithm, right? This algorithm that I created that helps you pinpoint the stocks and asset classes that you should be focusing on, that give you the higher profitability and higher success rate. So we're teaching you all of this along the journey that you want, as long as you want to stay with us. And we're just preparing you to make money and showing you how we make money and teaching you how to make money. And the beautiful part that separates us from everybody else out there is that these strategies that I'm using, these strategies that I'm teaching you is exactly what I'm using in my hedge fund. That 100 million and plus hedge fund is exactly what I'm teaching you, and I'm using, and I'm teaching you that.
So you're not saying, well, you should go do X, Y, and Z, but you're really doing something totally different. You're doing what you're teaching what you're doing.
100%. And that is the separation right there. I want to have people around me, the experts around me, that are putting their money where their mouth is. And my hedge fund, 99% of my net worth is in my fund. So even with my clients, when you invest with me, you're investing side by side with me, my mom, my brother, my partner's uncles. They all have money in our fund. And those are the type of people I want to invest in, because I know they have skin in the game, where if things go wrong, if they lose money, they're hurting just like I am.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, people talk to me about the real estate deals that we do and the creative financing that we teach. They say, well, are you an investor in this stuff, or do you just kind of tell people they should do it? I'm like, absolutely. I'm buying them. I'm doing them. I'm putting these deals together. I'm doing them myself. And then I'm also showing people how to do and teaching it. Right. So you have to eat what you're selling 100%.
100%.
I mean, almost run from someone who's not, or they better have a pretty damn good reason why they're not. So I think that's killer.
And that's what we're trying to teach. And we're trying to teach, like, again, to
systematized.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. We have a process. I wanted someone like my mom, someone like my sister, have no background in finance, to be able to, and we have a program inside that says 0 to trade in 21 days. I want to get you from, if you'd ever even opened a brokerage account before, I want to show you how to open a brokerage account. And then on the day 22, I want you to place your first trade, right? Like, that's our goal. And then we want to support you along the way.
That's awesome.
Right. And then we do that, and we support you, and then we get you to the point where we get you profitable, and then you start making money. And my goal is to get you better than me, right? Because what you said is, if you're an expert, right, and you're just starting out, especially this is what I love about the financial markets, is that it's the upside is unlimited.
Right.
It's if you can work hard and you can start to really focus, and you want to take this to any kind of level, you can do it better than I can. I'm going to give you the foundation, and I'm going to support you, and then you're going to build and build and build.
That's so awesome. That is awesome. And you got the team that's with you doing it, like you said, kind of hand in hand, showing you everything. And and you're using your 4 principles.
Not let you. You want to ask us questions. Everything's open to Q&A. We have emails. I mean, there is no, I'm not leaving anybody out there, because I understand the scariness of it, right? Like, you're taking your hard-earned money, and you're all of a sudden you're going to start to invest it. It's a very scary proposition.
Right.
But again, if you have those 4 principles that we're talking about, you have the specific knowledge, you have the right team around you, you have the right tools. I mean, you're unstoppable, right? And if you understand your why and you have the perseverance, the only thing to do is succeed at that point.
Absolutely. Well, and it's one of those things you can't get something that you've never had without doing something you've never done, right? We know that saying, and it's
It's a great
100%
saying.
true. It's 100%
Great saying.
true. One thing that I think is really cool about this, right, is again because we're talking about lifestyle, we're talking about freedom, whatever freedom means to you. That doesn't necessarily mean having a jet. All that's pretty solid freedom, but
Yep.
that's just whatever that freedom looks like to you. And I think this is cool because someone could say, "Hey, Jesse, I want to get in real estate." And I know there's definitely some, no money down techniques and strategies, and they work, but you got to put some work behind it, right? But some folks say, hey, what if I have a little bit to start with? Well, if they could learn these secrets and these tips that you're doing at Tactical Income, they could grow that. Now they could say, okay, I've taken this little tiny pile, turn it into a bigger pile. Now I go buy a piece of cash flowing real estate with that. Now we have cash flow coming every single month. Oh, wait, I take some of the cash flow that I don't need, put it back over here. It's a pretty beautiful circle I think you could have.
Absolutely. I mean, and when I look at my wealthy clients,
Yeah.
guys who are worth 100 million, 50 million, 100 million, a billion, that's all they do, right? They have one thing that they have one expertise
Yeah.
that they made most of their money in.
Mm-hmm.
And then they take that money that they made, and then they start to find experts or they learn it themselves. Like I have one client, it's probably worth a couple $100 million.
Mm-hmm.
He owns gas stations. He owns he has 81 K1s.
Oh my God.
Think about
81.
that. 81 K1s, but he made most of his money in oil and gas wells and real estate.
Wow. Oh my God.
But then he owns landscape companies. He owns a wealth management company. I mean, this guy, he's a good manager, right? He knows good businesses, right? And he finds really good managers to manage his business. But he's putting his money to work. He's levering his money, right? I talk about the one secret, right? I gave out $100 at that event, right?
Yeah,
and the one secret that every wealthy person that I know and that I've researched, how they accumulated the amount of wealth that they have. And I'm talking super wealthy, right? The 100 millions, the 50 million, the 50 billion, the billions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They use leverage.
Yes.
And you use it in real estate. There's different types of leverage, whether it's like margin or whether it's like, the loan to value ratios in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also people. It's also getting the teams together around you. It's also using compounding interest, with inside your money.
Yeah.
It's getting the money to work for you. That to me is leverage. And if you could have a combination
100%. Yeah.
That is how you're going to grow your wealth more efficiently than just by using one way.
So you have leverage in real estate, but then you have leverage in the financial markets as well. And then pretty soon when you have cash flow coming in and that's paying for those bills that you have, eventually you get those as low as possible, right? Eliminate what you can, live not the lifestyle that you could, right? We've definitely learned that lesson here, right?
Yep.
And then the cool thing, that's also buying you what? Time. It's buying you time, because now if I've got, mailbox money coming in from my investments and my properties or the people and the team and coming in from, having my system and my strategy with Tactical Income, doing this over here as well and creating the circle, I've got time. So I have time to go learn and study things that I want to know more about and not make mistakes. You're buying yourself time. So that's one of the things I don't think enough people understand is you literally can purchase time, but it's by making all of those dollars you have, those little soldiers, go out and work hard for you versus you working for them.
Oh my gosh. You said it. I can't say it any better than that. And that's why I want
Right?
to teach people either how to manage your own money,
Yeah.
or give your money, a portion of your money to us and let us manage this. And then let us also help you. If you're going to pick other managers to do it, let us help you find really good managers, right? Because there are certain people out there that, you need to have people help you find people to help you take this money, right? And do the right things with it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right? Have the right LLC set up and corporations and solo retirement accounts, and understanding that there's different ways and better ways that people are doing out there that you can use to help you and get to where you need to go a lot quicker. I call efficiency, just being a lot more efficient.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And there's 100%. So much you can shave off with that. Man, I love it. I love it. I think there's a lot of different areas we could go. We could probably make this a 4-hour thing.
We could.
Yeah. Can I have you on again sometime? Because I think there's a lot of other areas I'd love to delve into, man.
Absolutely. I'd love to do it. We'll keep it to hopefully a little shorter. My kids are out my door going crazy right now.
Same.
Dad, where are you? Where are you?
Yeah.
I get a text up the wazoo here. Dad,
man.
Are you done? Are you done?
I know, like just it'll be half hour now.
Yeah, I said it's gonna be 45 minutes. My son's like, all right, then we'll play football. I'm like, yeah.
We're making this a two-parter, man. That's how good it is. This is gonna be a two-parter.
It's great.
Dude,
I appreciate it.
Thank you for being on. I appreciate it so much. And to those of you watching and listening, if you want to get involved, go to tacticalincome.com. Right?
Yep.
Tacticalincome.com. And Jeff is all over the place. Like I said, CNBC, Cheddar News, Fox, you're on Reuters, you're all over the place. You're talking with the sharks and,
yes.
And your YouTube channel. So you've got some great stuff there. I've checked out some of your content already. It's fantastic. And the live Q&A right every single week.
Yep.
So go get on there and yeah, I mean, get started. Right? Get started.
You just got to take action.
You
right?
do.
Action is the number one thing. And I always say to people, I'd rather have failed than never to have failed before, and it's one of the greatest things my father ever said to me.
Absolutely.
Before he died, he said, hey, I don't want you to ever, you failed, but I don't want you to ever stop trying. And he goes, I never want you to utter these words. I should have, I could have, I would have. And that's why you need to take action.
Wow. I don't think we can edit any better than that. It's 100% true, man. Jeff, thanks so much.
Jess, it was great, man. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.